All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the ATX DAO Podcast. Today we have Matt and Christopher from the Quai team. So Christopher, welcome back. Matt, welcome to the pod.
Howdy.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, to start us off for today's episode, would love to, get a quick introduction as far as what you do here at Quai and, perhaps give a quick rundown as far as what the Quai Network does.
I'll give it to you since I'm a regular on this podcast at this point.
Matt, been at Quai for almost 2 years now. We do a little bit of everything except core engineering, BD, DevRel, marketing, ops, community management, you name it. If it's not core engineering, I have a little hand in it, picking things up anywhere they need to be picked up. So that's me, Christopher.
Quick introduction. You guys are familiar with me. I'm Christopher. I'm growth director at Quai Network. I've been managing growth operations for quite some time now. This obviously involves marketing. It involves business development. It involves basically picking up the axe and hitting the grindstone. Good summation of what I do.
Very cool. Very cool. So I know we have had Quai on the podcast before, but would love to hear a quick rundown as far as what differentiates Quai. I know it's a very unique consensus mechanism. So perhaps give a quick rundown of the network and what makes it unique.
Sure. I'll take that. Quai, layer one proof of work network. What makes us unique is we're globally scalable. We have programmability and scalability on a proof of work network, which in the proof of work space is super unique. On top of that, we have a dual token model. So in attempting to solve for a global monetary system, our dual token model provides, the three key pillars: store of value, medium of exchange, unit of account. Probably the biggest innovation that gets most people interested in it is one of those tokens called Chi, which we call the, globally scalable decentralized energy dollar.
So that's unique.
Yeah.
The energy-backed stablecoin.
Yep.
So for the audience, the traditional stablecoins, you take a government bond, you essentially have that one-to-one backed, put that onto whatever blockchain you're utilizing. So how could you go into a bit further as far as the mechanism behind this energy stablecoin dollar and, how that differentiates itself from the existing stablecoin market?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll touch on it real quick. Basically, the token is emitted proportional to the amount of energy put in to create it. That energy is represented in hash rate on a proof of work mine network. And so you have this linear emissions curve, basically hash rate equals token emissions. It achieves stability through a mature market in that miners can choose to mine one or the other based on what's profitable for them. And then additionally, there's a controller that adjusts an exchange rate that's native in the protocol, allowing for market arbitrage opportunities. So when supply is too high, you can convert one to the other, or if supply is too low, etc. So really letting the proper market incentive design achieve the price point that the market determines it should be.
So yeah, sorry. Okay, so it feels like very algo stablecoiny, right? Like if you look at the two things that are arbitraging itself.
Mhm.
Also, I'm just curious, sorry if I'm for those who are having to listen to me at all, actually. But so just walking through that, I'd love to learn more because it's kind of like the nouveau Web3 petrodollar in a weird way.
Yep.
Right. But it's like the energy dollar.
Yep.
So I know Christopher, who's a frequent guy on the pod, homie on the pod, has touched upon this, but yeah, would like to double click and understand. So if there's more hash rate, right? So if I'm just churning out hash rate on this thing, that means I'm just printing out more chi, right?
Correct.
Okay. So if I'm just turning out more hash rate, that just means that there's more power that is there to scale the network, which is great. I get more of the stable that's there. But then that stable has to effectively be deployed elsewhere, right? And it has to be accepted across a lot of these networks and protocols to actually hold value, right? If not, my actual electricity costs to facilitate the network is another external arbitrage thing that occurs, like it's another risk that occurs on it. So how do you guys think about that? How do you guys build good syncs for the stablecoin with all the protocols that you guys are building and incubating on Quai?
Good question. So the sync effectively initially is that exchange rate in the protocol, right? So Quai being the other side of this formula here is a deflationary asset, right? So at any point, somebody can see the opportunity to earn more Quai by trading their chi for Quai, burning that chi, therefore reducing that supply, and then printing Quai, making money doing that, right? That also works in the inverse as well. And so we see, miners as rational economic actors. They will choose to mine chi as long as it's profitable. When it's not profitable, they'll choose to mine Quai, right? There's lots of other like mechanisms that can come into play, emergent like behaviors and whatnot in this system. I just want to touch on briefly that, comparison to algorithmic stablecoins. The difference there is this is not pegged to anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Right.
bad example. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No,
It's actually a great
it's
example.
a great example. It's what
We
most
hear
people
it all
think
the
of.
time.
Yeah, it's what most people think of. So that's probably the biggest mechanism. But in order for that arbitrage opportunity to exist, you need those external markets, right?
Yes.
So the first one in existence right now is just wrap chi on the Quai ledger, right? So Quai being a deflationary asset, it's also EVM compatible. It's account based. So that's where you'll do all your DeFi and whatnot. Chi is actually on a separate ledger. It's a UTXO based ledger with some unique privacy properties, but that's where like the initial secondary market exists for Chi is on that ledger in the form of wrap Chi. People can trade between Quai and Chi there, which creates a secondary market to compare that price to the protocol's price, so that arbitrage opportunity actually exists. There's, obviously other arbitrage opportunities with the hash rate itself, right? So the briefest way to explain this is, if hash rate is going up, then there's, another arbitrage opportunity. Do you mine Quai or Chi now and then convert at the top? If hash rate is going down, do you mine Quai or Chi now and convert at the bottom? Right. So that's something that, hash rate arbitrators can take advantage of as well. But there's lots of potential emergent behaviors in this, system.
Yeah.
Right. And so really, the stability of Chi comes into play when that market is mature, right? Being so early right now, we're not seeing that maturity. You can track the conversion rates on both of these markets currently. And they have demonstrated some maturity, but it's still liable to like shocks. But there's lots of details we could go into in that. The other idea we've had recently, I'll pass to Christopher to talk more about, is other ways of like using Chi as a collateral for other.
There's two things I'll add.
Sure.
So that was a rock star answer. Definitely was a home run. Basically, it describes everything in a very easy to digest way. The protocol native exchange rate, so that's when you do it through the wallet itself. The 2-week lock on when you do that, and so that's what helps create that buffer of like an instant liquidity shock. Right? You have the 2 weeks, and it's broadcast publicly, and so when someone wants to take Quai to Chi or vice versa, right? Like that is very public, it's very known, and it's obviously 2 weeks is like 3 years in crypto world. So you're going to have that, little buffer there. And then second, I was going to say, we don't really correct it, but it's technically not a stable coin. As you know, right, we are in America, and stable coins now have a very clear definition as to what a stable coin actually is.
Yeah.
It is a flat coin. It will have stable-like properties over time, right? But just like the cost of energy goes up and down, and just like hash rate fluctuates, right? The same thing is gonna, we anticipate with the network. And so, we don't really correct people when they say it's a stable coin. That's the easiest way to actually frame it, think about it, and have a mental model about it. But it's not a stable coin in the fact that it's 1-to-1 with the US dollar, right? As all other stable coins are. So we call it a flat coin. There's been tons of examples of flat coins that have been experimented on, but none that have derived value from the actual blockchain itself. All the other ones have derived value from external assets. So whether it's Ethereum or, T-bills like you were alluding to originally.
I got to ask also, is there a lot of protocols that you're imagining currently or in the near future as part of those protocol syncs, right? Outside of the actual exchange mechanism that's either auto arbitraging or traders are arbitraging purposefully, would also accept Chi amongst Quai for their fees to use their protocols?
I mean, that's the goal. Yeah, eventually. We haven't gotten quite there yet. So liquidity is pretty thin on Chi at the moment. For the most part, because it is a UTXO based ledger, meaning you have to mine it.
Yeah.
It is a fair launched coin as well. I think that's really important to note. And so there isn't like a bootstrap source of liquidity on the outside. It's come in and then created a whole bunch, right, of chi out of thin air.
Yeah.
So over time, that is definitely the intention. It's also why we have wrap chi, because and you're very familiar with this, obviously building on a UTXO based ledger right now, it's not an account based ledger, meaning that it's not EVM compatible. We have to wrap it to create that EVM compatibility, which then creates that ubiquity throughout the ecosystem, right? So then you're able to take it to Solana, able to take it to Ethereum, whatever, and then use it there. And so we do have a partnership with Wormhole. Is basically across the finish line. Things have been signed, and now we're just waiting for the actual delivery of said product. And so once that occurs, then you're going to open up the possibilities of being able to do, as you explained, creating these sinks for chi. But it won't be chi natively, as I just explained. It'll be wrapped chi. So that's a very important distinction to make.
Yeah. In that case, it is pegged to the original chi, which is on a UTXO ledger, to the wrapped chi that's going in beyond from EVM into other kinds of consensus mechanisms and chains that through Wormhole,
which will also present another arbitrage opportunity.
Yes.
Bingo.
Yeah. I mean, this looks super interesting. I can't wait to see this like really expand and grow. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things, like even electricity gravity or hash rate gravity issues and like user issues into each of these protocols, which would be very interesting to think about. So yeah, I feel like someone could just write a paper just on that. But yeah, this is dope, guys.
There's unfortunately probably too many papers about.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this, but Quai's history is very intriguing. It's actually one of the reasons why I showed up randomly one day at a happy hour and assaulted Dr. K and Matt and one of our old engineers for like 3 hours until they hired me. It comes from a very collegiate background. It was actually researched and developed out of the University of Texas, so here in Austin. And it was from a professor, it's Dr. K. It was from the original founder, Blockchain Club, that's Alan. They came together and got an NSF grant, a National Science Foundation, to scale proof of work. And I think that alone, there's so many aspects to Quai that are very intriguing to me, but like having that official background, I think is just like icing on the cake. Because when all is said and done, it's not cooked up in some method's basement that's like trying to get a quick buck. Like this is an actual research project that was put out of a college in order to scale proof of work the right way. Right. And I think that makes all the difference when you're talking about like gambling and, looking at these chains and you're like wondering like, how does this data availability layer really apply to like what I want to do? And like, how does that actually scale? And like, where does it come from, et cetera, et cetera. We have a L1 that's EVM compatible, that's scalable, it's proof of work, has a dual token model whose tokens value aren't derived off of one another. Where did it come from? A university, right? Like everything you need.
Yeah.
In terms of like official credibility, its contemporaneous, or however you want to put that, the modern aspect of it, and like where we intend to actually go with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very cool stuff. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts, like why very unique token design architecture. Speaking of proof of work, I know in recent years there's been ongoing conversation as far as the pros and cons of proof of work versus proof of stake. I mean, how do you guys think as far as like trying to scale proof of work? And what do you say to the naysayers that are like, oh, proof of work is too energy intensive, especially as we're going into this AI infrastructure, boom that we're living through? Like, what do you say to the people that are against the energy consumption that proof of work operates under?
I'd say I was one of the folks who actually bought that narrative for a really long time, actually. And at the end of the day, the question is like, what are you using that energy for? Right. When you look at something like Bitcoin, and I think we've all heard like the narrative that one block takes like the energy of a like small town to actually create. That would be fine, I'd say, if Bitcoin scaled, right? If everybody was using it as money, then it's got the utility that like is worth the energy put into it. So when we talk about proof of work in like the energy sense, the question is like, what are you using it for? And is it actually going to be used for that use case? Right. So when I look at, the traditional financial systems today and think about all the energy that's put into it, I don't have hard numbers off the top of my head, and compared to the amount of energy that could be put into a financial system that could scale, then we were comparing like apples to apples at that point. When you think about like the proof of stake systems, like they were at that time with that narrative, like very valid, right? There wasn't a proof of work network system that did scale. Proof of stake was at that time valid, opportunity to scale blockchains. And so, totally support everybody's effort to scale blockchains. Proof of work and scaling proof of work is obviously not like an easy problem. And for the longest time, like it wasn't, something that a lot of people put a lot of time and money and effort into. I believe the reason why the founders at Quai Network did that is due to the economic finality of proof of work compared to proof of stake. And so what I mean is like economic finality at depth, right? So the iterative cost to produce blocks in a proof of work system versus a proof of stake system are like vastly different, right? So you get that economic finality in proof of work, you don't get it in proof of stake. Really, it all, how we do it all boils down to our consensus mechanism, be it proof of entropy minima, which is able to weight blocks more accurately. And so we don't run into the issue of, block contention that, chains like Bitcoin and Monero and the others do. So we're able to achieve that fast finality. And that fast finality, statistical finality, also allows us to create what we call I'm missing the word right now, but basically it's a system where, I can deliver 3 or 4 blocks at the same time to a single node and they instantly know which one is the tip, right? Causally invariant is the academic term there. So in a causally invariant system, you can actually begin to shard, and through sharding and merge mining, we can achieve good energy efficiency, scalability, everything you would want in a blockchain with the economic finality of proof of work.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the proof of entropy minima because, like, that's the POEM acronym that many people might miss, and I'm glad that you checked into that. So the merge mining thing is something I want to double click on, right?
Sure.
So the merge mining thing is obviously on the UTXO side of things, right?
It's on both.
So you're merge mining on the proof of stake side, and then also merge mining on the proof of work side.
Yeah, so
Account and
it's
UTXO.
one blockchain, 2 state roots
Yeah.
for 2 separate ledgers.
Okay.
So you're mining both of them. Yeah.
Could you then merge mine effectively, going back to Chi, could I merge mine wrap Chi and Chi by just providing hash rate theoretically?
So you mine Quai and Chi. Those
Yes,
are the
yeah,
native tokens
exactly.
on those ledgers.
Yeah.
Right. Wrap Chi is a smart contract.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, theoretically, at any given point, as I'm actually providing hash rate
Mhm.
for the actual proof of work side, obviously,
Mhm.
right? The question is like, can I just opt to be like auto, just give me wrap Chi?
Yeah. Well, not Wrap Chi, but you could choose either Quai or Chi.
Okay.
Right. Or you could set a spectrum of preference, right? I want 70% or 50% or 20% one way or the other.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's a huge part of like, the economics behind that dual token model is like miners we know are rationally, like economically rational.
Yeah.
They're going to choose the token that's most profitable.
I'll add really quick, and I'm probably the least technical person in Quai, but when we say merged mining, most people think that we're mining 2 tokens at the same time, but that's not the case of how the architecture actually works. There's I'm gonna probably butcher it, but the way the actual architecture looks, there's 3 chains itself, and the merge mining is actually just working those chains. So it's not merge mining 2 tokens. Instead, you have a prime, a region, and zone chains that's being merged mined. And this is how you reach consensus at the level at which Matt said, was because it's mining the chains itself. Prime and zone are essentially headers, and then prime and region are headers, and then zone itself is what we call work shares. Essentially, and I won't dive into the specific there, but that's where the merge mining actually takes place. It doesn't take place at the token level.
Yeah. I want to provide some additional clarity here. So the 3 chains stacked on top of each other.
Yeah.
To Christopher's point, it's, bottom chain, zone chain. That's where all your state is.
Yeah.
That's where the rewards are. That's where the transactions happen. To Christopher's point, region and prime, those are more like header chains. So we shard the blockchain in order to scale. When that happens, additional zone chains are created. There's 2 zone chains per region chain. And then transfers between those chains are just what we call external transactions that just bubble up to those header chains.
Cool. That's a good way for you guys
Very-
to click on that. That's a
very
good
technical.
triple click, I guess, right?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I also wanted to go back a point, talk about the argument with energy consumption and proof of work. I'll say it a little more frankly, but I feel like that's an old narrative. It's very much played into the ESG side of things that, as we've seen, have started dying and going away. In fact, if you actually really look at like the mining sector and Bitcoin miners and the type of technology they're employing, you'll find that the green energy sector within Bitcoin mining is actually the most researched and actually the most pursued after. So, talking geothermal, that's Puerto Rico. You're talking hydroelectric, that's anywhere with a river, right? You're talking solar, you're talking wind, all the in nuclear, and that's very niche. It's real though, and these sectors are literally thriving off of Bitcoin mining and ushering in technology that's allowing this to take place. So yes, you have very old school ASIC, video cards or regular ASICs, and old school bringing energy in, and it's brought oil and gas or liquid natural gas, etc. But it's a whole sector of green energy that's thriving again due to proof of work. So it's more of a sticking or like a selling point, if you will, for proof of stake to say like, oh, the energy consumption, this, and that. But I mean, how many, look at the energy consumption of computers, or look at the energy consumption of traffic lights, or look at the energy consumption of something very minute. Like, again, it's going to be very equivocal when you look at it like that. And those aren't bringing in other newer, more advanced energy, breakthroughs as proof of work mining actually is.
If you want energy efficiency, incentivize it.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point. I think as far as energy consumption goes, as far as, consuming energy is not a bad thing, right? It's
No.
like, all right, what's that? Is it coming from renewable energy sources? I know, like Christopher, you talked into tapping into these energy sources that otherwise wouldn't be able to be accessed due to the nature of blockchains and proof of work, which I think is a very underrated point of proof of work that like isn't talked about enough. And as far as like the percentages of renewable energy within proof of work, that's continuing to grow and likely will, because it makes sense for these miners to mine when energy cost is low, right? So it's like, they're incentivized to pursue that cheap energy cost. So I think that's all, great point there. I would like to step back and chat through from a high level. I mean, you guys have had a crazy busy year. I mean, mainnet in Q1, euphoria, Trump gets elected, markets are ripping. You guys launched like right on the back of that, right?
Yeah.
And then, so I wanted to chat as far as like the timing of like going to mainnet. Like, was that very thoughtful as far as like leading up into the election? And then, some of the lessons learned over the past year or so, having mainnet and now like building out in public.
Matt has been here through all that, and I joined around February, so I'd love to defer to you here since you actually saw it from before.
I mean, I would say, I'll just speak personally. The timing wasn't ideal, right? Ideally, we would have, launched in time with markets and all that other jazz. But I think, what little insight I could provide, especially the audience, is like not a lot of people have launched L1s and they don't really understand like what it takes to actually launch an L1 and be successful, right? So a lot of the initial success of launching an L1 is like, frankly, just having accessibility to your token, right? So a lot of our timing was slightly delayed due to like just trying to make sure we were launching with the best partners possible, right? We're talking about a little bit more in the crypto space, but I think we've yet to see like all the stories of what it's like working with market makers and exchanges. It's I would say like an immature industry that is maturing very quickly. But I wasn't like on a fly on the wall for like most of those conversations. But what effectively happened was we were just trying to launch with the best partners possible, and also like time it appropriately with, making sure we had the maximum distribution we could have out the gate. So we launched as soon as we were ready, and that's the best we could do.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like as far as L1s or L2s, pick your project. Like Monad, for example, is coming up, and people have been waiting for months and months as far as mainnet of like, all right, when
Right.
the hell is this going to launch? And
I was waiting for testnet.
like I feel like it's I don't even know how long testnet's been going on. It feels like it's
Not very long.
yeah. Regardless, like yeah, trying to like time the market, was curious if that was like a very thoughtful of like, all right, we could see this new change in regulation and how this industry is regulated. So yeah, I was just curious.
Hindsight, I'll say like I
timing
think the timing was perfect for everything we got lined up coming soon with Quai Network. We had to learn a lot of lessons in order to be able to capture the moments we've captured this year. And so, like, in hindsight, I think our timing was perfect for Quai Network, for the team, for our community. But on the outside looking in, it can look a little odd. But yeah.
It just how it worked out.
Yeah.
Curious, I know going through Congress, we have the Clarity market structure bill that's working its way through. Are there any like components within that legislation that you're like closely monitoring, or anything you're keeping close eye on as far as how it pertains to Quai?
Not me personally. Christopher might know a little bit more. But based on what I know currently, it's really hyper focused on like USD backed staples. So being that we were still building our mature market to achieve stability with Qi, it's not something we're paying super close attention to, albeit like we definitely poke the periscope up every once in a while, make sure we're not heading in the wrong direction.
That's also why I had a small disclaimer earlier about the stable versus the flat coin, because that's pretty much the only thing that I'm aware of that we need to be. I mean, as you guys already know, proof of work has been deemed broadly as a commodity. So, right, there's a legal status there, and then we're not building a stable coin, right? We're not trying to do 1-to-1. It's completely different than that. It's just supposed to track the price of block production. So like I said, we don't correct it often. We're not going to go out of our way necessarily to go to every podcast and be like, hey, asterisk, like it's not a stable coin. Right. At some point, maybe we'll have a lawyer, like a law team doing that. But ultimately, yeah, we're not paying too much close attention. All I know is that the environment's just way more amicable, and it was a breath of fresh air in November when we all knew that the industry itself was going to get a little bit less of a thrashing, as it was definitely getting a thrashing under the previous administration for sure.
That's Gary G.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I will add, like, we all kind of saw it coming, right? Like, stable coins are probably the best product market fit for crypto outside of Bitcoin right now. For sure. Right. So we definitely saw it coming. One of the reasons, like, we built G, with the privacy properties, the scalability, is because we would rather not live in a system where we're all using a CBDC in everything but name, right?
Yeah, just my 2 cents on that is that I think it's it's really funny. These last few weeks have been traveling quite a bit and meeting a lot of smarter people, which is not to say that you guys, I mean, like, I would like to be the dumbest guy in the room. I feel like I'm the dumbest guy in the room.
I got this here so I can get singled out.
No, but like my point is that like really interesting people from all these different spaces, and it's kind of funny. The ongoing theme that we get is like, especially when you talk about energy and everything that the current administration is doing to try and compete in various industries. The growing idea is that like America's culture is about lawyers and Asia's culture is about engineers, right? And it's a very interesting example to think about how it's an interesting analogy to think about how we go about building things and think about things, right? And to your point, like, it seems a lot of the iterations in crypto, and I know we're all like love this, is like built around financial instrumentation, right? So how can we facilitate further financial instrumentation and be more capital efficient in relation to this network, right? So I like the idea of Qi looking at like, this is the amount of energy that we're putting into this network, and that is what that extended value can be multiplied on through financial instrumentation or effective use cases. And that's a pretty cool, novel way to think about a flat coin, right? Even if I think about it, and I'm just like, I gave the algo stablecoin example, and you corrected me, you say we're more of a flat coin, right? And that I'm glad that you guys clarified that. It's just interesting to think about, well, okay, if this is how much energy I'm putting in, and this is that quote unquote flat coin equivalent for it, what is the societal and economic impact and the network impacts that create for businesses and protocols and startups that lay on your chain? It would be a very interesting thing to track into in relation to Qi, because that's energy putting into the chain. And that's pretty cool because like a lot of other stables don't do that, right? They're just like, we're just here to like de-risk you from the volatility of other assets.
Right.
And that's neat. That's a very unique thing that I don't think anyone in crypto has.
We've been geeking out on this for a long time. There's a lot of what we would call potential emergent behaviors that could come out of this system. To your point, like one of the things that keeps coming to my mind is that we know where the yield comes from on Quai Network, right? And we have some really unique primitives I know Christopher geeks out on, I geek out on too. Still in the works, but being able to build derivatives on top of hash rate, provide yield to folks who decide to lock their rewards for a certain period of time, reselling that yield on an external market, and even like a decentralized exchange.
Yeah.
And then like making those like super fungible, and just continuing to build. There's a lot of different directions you can go in once you fall down the rabbit hole.
So since the audience probably has no idea what we're talking about, why don't we back up and just kind of explain some of that? So when we're talking about tokenizing yield on proof of work network, this comes from the chain, like Matt just said. Is perfect, by the way. What that is referring to is called locked mining rewards.
Right.
There's a rule within the chain that it's proof of work. So there's miners, there's block producers. You produce blocks. When you produce blocks, you get reward. Now there's an option as a block producer to lock your reward up for a certain amount of time. And depending on that time, you get what we call a more juiced reward or yield. And so we can point to that and say, hey, this is a source of yield for, Quai. This is a source of yield. You can look at a year down the line and get 25% on, right? And like, you don't have to worry about, like a Ponzi-nomics, right? Of like external capital fueling that. Again, that is a reward that's coming from the chain. And you can point to it and say, hey, it came from here. And I waited this long, pay up.
Based in physics.
Based in physics, exactly. But that's just one mechanism. And like you said, there's a lot of emergent properties that we're very excited about that we want to talk about broadly, because there's like a lot of different areas we can go to with it. But something that is very new that just we announced about 3 weeks ago. It's not even on testnet yet. It's called Project Soap. And I don't know if we want to dive into it yet.
Let's do it.
Let's dive right in.
Yeah.
Get the whipped cream pool.
My boy here wanted to chat about that.
We all love soap.
Yeah.
Some stay clean, guys.
Some people need more soap than others. You know what I mean?
Why were you looking at me when you said
I was looking at you. Yeah, I was looking at. Jokes aside, it's pretty cool because it kind of takes the proof of work economics that we know nowadays, and it kind of flips them on its own head. And in doing so, we not only secure additional chains, but we also broaden the scope of hardware that you can use with our chain. For a long time, and it will still be true after Project Soap goes live, we were GPU only. And so the whole idea is, again, to prevent nation state control, or in other words, locking down of one hardware type that would then prevent the network from functioning properly. You would then go to GPUs only. So it's called ProgPow is the algorithm. And to keep a long story short, we're actually expanding that with Project Soap. And instead of just being GPU only, we're switching to a different algorithm. It's called is it OxPow? Yeah, it's
OxPow.
OxPow.
Kind of blanket term.
Yeah. And that will enable additional hardware types, algorithms to be used. So SHA-256 and then script. And so what's important about this is that, GPUs will still be the backbone of the network. And so if anything, we get big, we will, and then things happen, which they might, we will still have the network itself secured through GPUs. That won't change at all. But this allows and unlocks the ability for the universality. So other hardwares to come on in and as well mine Quai or Chi, depending on their preference. But what this also enables is, for example, and this is just a loose example, hasn't seen the light of day yet, but I might be doing a thing or two behind the scenes. You might have like an energy broker, for instance, that has mining infrastructure already, which a lot of these, energy brokers do. And then they can take like 5-10%, a conservative amount of their hash rate, and direct it towards mining the energy dollar. And then that is very exciting to me and to our whole team and really the whole world, because that really unlocks the real power of the energy dollar. So when you think of energy dollar, yeah, sure, you think of like blockchain's a crazy concept. It's got all these mechanics behind it. But like you also think that power plants, energy brokers are the ones that are reproducing this. That's not the case yet. Project Soap enables that because they don't have to worry about new infrastructure, new hardware in order to actually accomplish this. So one of the really exciting aspects of it, I haven't even dove into like the actual mechanics of it and how it changed proof of work economics. I'll dive in just briefly on that, but essentially, actually I'll let Matt do it because I think he does a better job explaining it. And, ultimately like this is pretty exciting.
Yeah. Okay. So SOAP, SOAP stands for Subsidy Open Acquisition Protocol. So effectively what the foundation is doing is standing up a pool for SHA miners, script miners to merge mine with Quai and another chain like Ravencoin for Kapow, Litecoin, Doge, Bitcoin Cash, etc. And in doing so, they will be incentivized and get more rewards in acquire chi. And then the subsidy rewards, or the rewards that they would get on like Bitcoin Cash, Ravencoin, Litecoin, is then used to purchase Quai at market, right? So by default, that negates miner sell pressure on the token. It allows us to choose whether to burn that token or provide that token to folks who want to lock their Quai for additional yield, right? And so
Yield paid out in what?
in Quai.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah. And so, initially, the APR will be super high. This should encourage more liquidity to come into Quai to soak up that APR, which in turn reduces or increases price, which increases hash rate, which increases SOAP subsidies, which provides more yield, which increases liquidity, which increases price, which increases hash rate.
Well, yeah.
Bingo.
Exactly.
So super excited about this. It kind of solves that go-to-market challenge that a lot of proof-of-work networks have, in that they need to acquire more users than miners every single day, right? So really excited for this. It's almost in testnet. The community is absolutely aping on it. They're super excited about it. Miners love it because it kind of like unites their incentives with users and makes it one of the most profitable chains to mine out there.
I think what's important to note as well, perfect, by the way, that's why I threw it to you, perfect breakdown. But we just talked about locked mining rewards as being a source of yield, and this unlocks another avenue of yield for the chain as well. And so like for literally both the native sources of yield within Quai, you can literally point to somewhere and say, this is where it comes from. You can point to SOAP and say, hey, it comes from this, and this is why we have staking. Or you can point to what is LMTs or liquid mine tokens, again, and say, hey, this came from the chain through liquid mine rewards, right? So very important when it comes from a DeFi aspect. Is it sustainable? Yes. How? By itself. It's literally baked into the protocol. So really, really key there. And yeah, I mean, it's all hands on deck when it comes to SOAP. We've been literally nonstop, 7 days a week, 24 hours pushing this and trying to get awareness, which again, we want to thank you for inviting us on, because SOAP, it completely changes the game for proof of work when all is said and done. Again, proof of work has throughout history had to deal with miner sell pressure. And so Quai is taking that and turning into buy pressure.
I like it. This is really cool.
It's super unique. I mean, as far as helping the token price of Quai, I mean, like one would think that this is extremely beneficial. So like long term, it's super exciting. We'd love to pivot the conversation as far as, Christopher, Director of Growth here at Quai, would love to hear some stuff that you're currently working on, SOAP, otherwise, staying clean. We'd love to hear as far as like what's capturing your attention nowadays, and some stuff that excites you in helping grow the Quai network.
Well, we're talking about it right now. SOAP is like the big all hands on deck push. This is a huge game changer within the last 3 weeks. We talked about liquid mine tokens or liquid mine rewards. There's a hand in making sure that gets the attention that it deserves. Though again, most of our efforts have been focused on SOAP. If I can't talk about everything I do behind the scenes because certain commercials aren't actually signed, and at that point, it's just kind of like it's what's the right way to you might jump.
Talk about the sign.
Look without before you leap. You know what I mean, right? Like you want to cross the finish line before you talk about the deals that you have. I'll say something that is interesting to me is bringing the idea of the energy dollar into the world. Like that in itself is one of the reasons why. Like Matt, I almost left blockchain altogether. I've covered this on a previous podcast, so go and dig through the history if you want to hear why. But for the most part, I lost faith in all the systems. I got too close, Icarus, if you will, to the sun, saw how they worked, and almost burned out, so to say. And Quai really brought it back to the fold for me through the energy dollar concept. For quite a long time now in crypto, we've been looking for crypto native, like an endogenous, unit of account or crypto dollar, or like something that is like internal to crypto that's not reliant on external assets that, runs the ecosystem. And Bitcoin was supposed to fulfill that. And we won't go into why it is or isn't, right? Because it's still the best store of value, period, throughout the world. But the energy dollar, again, seeing like a parallel economy thrive or spring up based off the energy dollar, like that's what gives me fuel for the fire. That's what like inspires me. Why? Because again, the energy dollar's never been done before. Cover it now on this podcast. You understand its concept and why it is. And there's so many like potential unlocks that haven't been even realized yet. I won't go into some of the ideas that I have, but for me, when it comes to the energy dollar, you think, and I'll say it like this, that energy brokers would be producing this, and we haven't seen that quite yet, right? And so that's really inspiring to me because guess what? We have it. We have the energy dollar, right? We have Project Soap. You can use your hardware you already have existing. So I won't go down that thread, but
he's super excited.
That does make me really excited at the end of the day. And then seeing these ecosystems thrive and incorporating our initial DeFi elements that haven't been realized yet into it are like where, that's where I think about when I'm going to bed at night and making sure we can realize it. We have Wormhole that's coming out. We're going to be available to the American market very soon through Kraken. Thank you, Kraken. Thank you, Wormhole. And all those should, be realized by the end of the year.
How much is Project Soap geographically? How are you thinking about it go to market geographically with Project Soap? Because the big unlock, it seems like, is that like, so to your point, right?
Mhm.
Like you want to get more. So traditionally, the value of a chain is dependent on the number of users and the economic value driven by users, right? Your de-risk, in addition to that proposition, is that, and the fact that, hey, you can point towards these block rewards or these liquid mine tokens to say, this is the value that we're adding. But it seems like this unlocks more hash rate to come in.
Bingo.
Right? So that means that you're just saying that, hey, guys, instead of just using this specific hardware, you can use this other hardware, which might be of a different category, maybe upper or lower, to come in and use this. So I think about this and I say, well, there must be a geographic target for this, right? Because there's certain parts of the world that doesn't have the same kind of energy capacity to produce, and let alone the hardware to be accessed to actually provide energy for this stuff. So are you thinking about it geographically like, dude, we're thinking about like literally Asia, or we're thinking about Africa to be like, this creates an unlock for these people to come in and use this hardware, provide value, get stability, and then utilize it for the emerging markets?
So I've got a pretty short answer. It's not going to be super glamorous. The answer is yeah. We definitely have like an ideal target. For me personally, I want to stay in America. We're made in America. This is an American project. We want to make sure that we're ubiquitous and universal throughout America. You're correct. Yes. I can go to Iceland or Greenland, right? And they have geothermal projects over there that like, produce energy at like extremely small amount, per kilowatt hour. And we are targeting those, but, as a global project, we want to be everywhere. So India, right? Africa, Antarctica, if possible, right? Maybe someday.
Yeah.
But we're in America. So we want to make sure that we have a stronghold here. We want to make sure this is our base. We want to make sure that, America, if we're made in America, that we're actually living by those ideals. And so I want to target mostly America. But again, we want to be ubiquitous, and we definitely have interests outside of America. So I don't want to relegate us to a specific area. We're global. We want to emphasis in America, but, we'll probably end up, like I said, in like Greenland, Iceland, Africa, Philippines, India, everywhere.
Energy is one piece, but what we're talking about is expanding from general purpose hardware to like application specific.
Yeah.
Right. So I would ask the question more in like, okay, where are all these ASIC farms at?
Exactly.
Right. And so everywhere there's an ASIC farm that has to spin down miners due to current price of their token, they can now mine quite profitably.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that just basically listed off a number of countries in my mind.
Right? There's a lot of them out there.
Exactly. Starting with Zamunda and Madripoor. Yeah.
Top of the list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let's see. I guess final question here. When you think of, Quai 5 years from now, like what KPIs, what focus would you look back on and be like, yeah, this was a massive success for Quai in the years ahead? Like what are you guys currently looking at?
Chi adoption. Yeah. Chi adoption. That's easy for me.
Yeah.
I don't know, Matt, if you have a different answer.
Yeah, I mean that's huge.
Game.
I mean, since I spent a lot of time in DevRel, it's projects like our partners with like Lithium or others who are really taking advantage of some of the unique innovations that Quai has available to them to make a name for themselves and create something new in crypto that the world hasn't seen yet. We have opportunities for decentralized mining. We have opportunities for decentralized trustless RPCs, and taking advantage of our unique dual token. There's tons of unique DeFi opportunities and other consumer apps. When you have a blockchain that scales and gives you that 5-second statistical finality, like you can actually go to mass market with that, right? So now you can have real consumer apps that find a product market fit and take off. So 5 years from now, I hope to see at least 3 of those.
Yeah, I'll add one last thing. The original idea of Bitcoin was digital cash, the digital payment system, global commerce, and ultimately, it's the best store of value in the world. Period. It's the only store of value that its value goes significantly up, not just a little bit up, but exponentially in some cases throughout its history. If 5 years from now, as I said, cheat options, my big thing. Agree with Matt. There's so much technology under the hood we haven't covered because we want to make this digestible for everybody. That's really intriguing. Things like Nepo POWs. Things like Poem have really changed the game. Chi in itself, we believe, is going to go ahead and fulfill that original vision of being that day-to-day global commerce. That's why it's a scalable proof-of-work system. Again, transactions of over 100,000, it scales even beyond that, but that's all you need for global commerce. And so 5 years from now, I'll know this is successful if I can buy coffee with Chi.
I love it.
I love it too. All right. Well, Christopher and Matt, thank you so much. And appreciate you
guys.
listeners out there.
Love it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.